Ashley here with HeartHookHome.com, and today we are going to sew one of these coin purse clasps to a crocheted coin purse. The crocheted pattern is available for free on HeartHookHome.com. I'll link it in the comments of this video. It's just a very simple, quick, easy to work up little pouch looking thing. And then we're going to take our little clasp and sew it onto the top. It doesn't look like this is going to fit, but I promise you that it will, and it's going to turn out lovely. So I went ahead and tried to match all of my yarn colors to my clasps. As you can see here, I think it's kind of cute. And this one, I just love the charcoal color. So we are going to sew on this charcoal clasp today. What you're going to need is you're going to need a kiss clasp for your coin purses. This one is 3.3 inches wide, so about 3 1/3 inches is the size of this clasp that will fit with this crochet pattern. And you're also going to need some heavy duty thread. I've gone ahead and threaded my needle here, but you're going to need some heavy duty thread. If you have some embroidery floss, you could use several strands of that, and that should work nicely as well. You want to make sure that you're using the heavy duty thread because it's going to be bounced around in your purse a lot, and it's going to take some heavy abuse. So you want to make sure that whatever thread you use, it's going to be sturdy enough to keep the integrity of your stitches and without it falling apart. So first things first, I want to show you the size of the clasp in relation to this crocheted piece, right? So your clasp should be just about the same size as the coin purse, maybe just a tad bit smaller. See how you can see my crochet here along the bottom? You want your actual crocheted coin purse to be ever so slightly smaller than the actual clasp that you're using. So with this crochet pattern, we have 35 stitches around the top. Now I fastened off here, you can see, with the invisible join, and I'm going to count halfway to the other side. Since 35 is an odd number, obviously you can't crochet or count exactly evenly around, so I'm just going to count 17 stitches and place a stitch marker on the other side. And the only reason we're doing this is so that when we start our sewing, we're going to line this hinge up with where we fastened off here on the purse, and then we're going to put that stitch marker over on this side so that we know as we're sewing whether or not we're lining up with the halfway mark of our clasp as well. So I'm going to count 17 stitches around and place that stitch marker. And there we are, and now we are ready to start our sewing. So what you're going to do is you're going to place the pretty side of your coin purse clasp down. You're going to face it down, and you're going to position where you fastened off here right on the corner of one of these sides of the coin purse. Right? So you're going to take where you fastened off. If you look at this coin purse clasp, you can see that there's a ridge in here. And what you're going to do is you're going to put this upper lip of your coin purse into that ridge. You're going to kind of shove it up into that channel, and we're going to sew it as securely as we can to the coin purse itself. So to start, I'm going to take my needle that I've already thread. I'm going to insert my needle about 1 inch down, maybe even 1.5 inches down, and we're just going to kind of feed it up towards the top of the fabric. You're not going to go all the way to the top of the fabric. You're going to stop a little bit below the very top lip of your crocheted edge, because that part of the crochet is going to be up inside the channel. So go ahead and pull your thread all the way up, and by doing it down low, it helps to hide where we joined, or not where we joined, but where we inserted our thread, and it kind of keeps it more secure by being farther down. Okay, so I'm going to take my clasp, and where I fastened off right here, I'm going to match that up with the edge of that clasp, and we're going to force it up into that channel as high as we can get it to go. And I'm going to kind of pinch it with my left hand, and I'm going to sew with my right hand. So where that yarn is, or that thread is coming out, we're going to go right next to it, and we're just going to push that needle up, and we're going to make it come out that first hole, right? So go ahead and pull. You want to make sure that you're not getting your stitch marker caught up in there. I've actually done that a couple times where I get my thread caught there, so kind of keep your stitch marker out of the way. Okay, so if you don't hold it real tight, it's going to fall out like this. So you need to make sure that you're pinching and keeping this all very nice and tight up into that channel. So I'm pushing up the fabric on the inside here. And these first stitches are the hardest. Now I'm going to push that up as high as I possibly can, and I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to angle it down, right? So I'm going to catch, I'm putting it down and into this, and I'm going to catch as much of that fabric, just that stitch right there, as I can. I want to make sure that all of that fabric is going to be up inside of my channel on the coin purse. So let's go ahead and make sure that's nice and secure. Now we're going to move to a slightly different spot. So you came out right there. We're just going to put it over just like a tiny, tiny little bit, maybe on the other part of that stitch, and we're going to come back up through the same hole that we just went into. So we're going to go into, or come out of that same hole that we just went into. Make sure that my thread isn't going to get caught on my stitch marker. I'm going to pull it right on through. Now we're going to make sure that our fabric is way up in that channel, the groove, we'll call it the groove. Now we're going to take our needle and we're going to face it down to get as much of that fabric as we can on the back end, right? So now we're going to go ahead and pull that all the way through. Pull it nice and tight to make sure it's not going anywhere. Now you're going to move your needle over just a tiny little bit, and you're going to go back up into that same hole that you just came out of. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. So you're coming out of that hole that you just went into. And that's why you have to move your needle over just a little bit when you're sewing, because if you go into the same hole that you just came out of, well, then you're undoing your stitch. So when you pull this, you're going to pull it up and make sure that that fabric is all the way up there into that coin clasp. So now I'm going to take my next piece of fabric. I'm going to make sure it's nice and tight up in there. I'm going to angle my needle down to make sure that I'm getting lots and lots of fabric. And I'm just going to keep on sewing. Okay, go over just a little bit. Come right back out that same hole. And we're going to do this all the way around. And this is it. Literally. It's really not too hard. It's very intimidating when you first start. I had to do it several times before I really felt completely confident with it. But so I'm making sure that that fabric is nice and tight. Going straight down to catch as much of that fabric as I can. You really want to catch that whole entire stitch if you can, because there's that one row of single crochet that we did at the top of this coin purse, and that's what we're trying to hook, is all of that. Make sure you're pulling your stitches nice and tight. If you've got any loopy loops like this, you want to make sure that you're pulling them tight before you're really moving on. You might need to pull your threads individually. There we go, I got it. And then make sure that your needle is still nicely threaded. Now, when we start getting up to the top center here, that's where we're going to start wanting to make sure that our stitch marker on the other side is actually going to line up with this side. So you want to make sure that you're not pushing, when you're pushing these up in there, that you're not pulling it over too much, or this way one way, or or one way or the other, but that you're keeping it very consistent in your placement. Okay, and this is it, guys. Okay, when we get to this center part here, we're sewing it along nicely. It's going up into that groove, looking nice and clean and pretty. Now we want to make sure that when we get over to this other side here where our stitch marker is, we want to make sure that we are lining this up correctly. So we want to make sure that when we get over here that the stitch marker is going to be right in the middle of the hinge here. So I'm just going to keep on going and keep on checking the placement of the stitch marker in relation to where I am sewing the actual coin purse itself. Okay, looks like our stitch marker is going to line up pretty nicely. Just going to keep on sewing here. I do recommend when you get to the last opening here on each side of the coin purse, sometimes if you can't find your hole, it helps if you go down a little bit and then just move it directly up, and you can kind of find it that way. But, oops, I'm about to get tangled here. I do find that it is helpful and it's a lot more sturdy if on your last two holes here, if you go through those twice, it really helps to kind of keep everything super strong and super in place. So I'm going to go through these last ones twice. I'm going to go ahead and remove this stitch marker because we have arrived, right? And it looked nice. So this last set here, I'm going to go through this one twice just to make sure that it's nice and sewn tightly. Okay, so now I'm going to come in the back here, and now to jump over to the other side here, I'm going to feed my yarn through just a little bit on the inside of the purse, or not my yarn, I keep saying that, my thread, a little bit over, just to where it will line up better with that first hole we've got on the other side. And then we're literally going to do the same exact thing that we just did on the other side, all the way around. So I'm going to sew this side of the coin purse, and when I get over here, we'll do doubles on this side. I'm going to do a double stitch on this side because it's the first one. I'll do a double stitch on this side. I'll reinforce the first one that we did, and then I will fasten off with you and we'll hide our thread tails. So I'm going to sew all the way around, and I'll hook up with you when I get to this side. I am almost all the way back around sewing my coin purse clasp to my actual coin purse. And when I get all the way around, I'm going to do a double stitch and those last two just to keep them extra secure. And like I said, if you met up with your stitch marker correctly on this side should line up just about perfectly. If you might still have to kind of push it up in there, finagle it, or whatever, but if as long as that stitch marker was in fact halfway, you should be pretty close to perfect. So I'm going to continue sewing. We are so close to being done. These are excellent little quick projects that would be perfect for, I'm going to give several of my colored ones, other colored ones to coworkers for the Christmas gift exchange this year. So pretty cool. Hopefully they like them. When I get to the last, I'm going to put push that up in there a little bit more. I'm going to put 2 stitches around this last one. Right back into that same one just for added durability. And then I'm going to do the same thing to where I started because I didn't do 2 there. I really should have. So I'm going to feed over just a little bit. Come out right about there. And make sure that I do this side again, just that outermost set of stitches here, just to give it some added strength where it pulls the most. Okay, that is it. That is all. Now I'm going to go to the inside here, and I don't want to be able to see where I'm going to fasten off on my thread. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of this yarn, like right here, an inconspicuous spot, right? You're only going to grab just a little bit of it. You're going to pull your thread out to where it's almost all the way through, and then come back the same direction and go through it to create your knot, right? So here's your knot, and now when you pull it, make sure it's nice and tight. And then we're going to do that one more time. You want to make sure your knot is nice and tight. So I'm going to do that again, almost all the way through, and come back up the back side through the loop that I just made and pull it tight again. Make sure that that is nice and tight and it's not going anywhere. And now, so that I don't just clip my thread right here in the middle of nowhere, I'm going to kind of feed my needle down, kind of like we did when we started. I'm just going to feed my needle down until I get down to about the middle of the coin purse, pull that yarn through, and then I'm going to clip my thread down here so that when you are just looking at the coin purse, you can't tell where I started my thread and where I ended my thread, right? So here we are with an adorable little coin purse. Isn't that so fancy? It looks so nice, looks so fancy. And here we are. How adorable is that little guy? Oh my goodness, he's just precious. I just love him. So I hope that this helps you sewing your coin purses to, or your clasps to your coin purses. Remember that you can find the pattern for all of these cute little guys right on Heart Hook Home, and make sure to share a picture with me when you're done on the Heart Hook Home Facebook page, on the Instagram page, or tag me with Heart Hook Home on Twitter, etc. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will talk to you soon.